Here's a guy asking Kent Hovind where his God came from.
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from. And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it.
A better question might be, what the fuck is a spiritual force? I don't understand what a force would even be if it is not something to do with time, space, and matter.
I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter and a pen is made of material matter and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen?
Or you could ask, what the fuck is spiritual matter? What does it mean to say that something exists if it has no extension or location in some kind of dimension?
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant, because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it?
If there's a God but no space, where does he exist? Literally nowhere.
If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it?
If there's a God but no time, when does he exist? Literally never.
You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously.
How does something undergo the act of coming into existence without there first being time in which such an act is performed? What does it mean for a God or anything else to act or do anything at all without time or space in which to do it?
The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter.
Interestingly, this passage doesn't actually say that Yahweh created time. It just says, in the beginning, without explaining why there was a beginning.
So you have time, space, matter, created a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them.
Outside is a spatial orientation. What does it mean to be outside of space itself? I assume that Hovind is using the term outside in some metaphorical sense, but if he doesn't mean it literally, then what are we to take the word outside to mean here?
If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality.
These all seem to me to be events carried out by the brain. What would it mean to say that they are anything else? If they are spiritual, what does that mean exactly? And Hovind isn't answering the question here. Even if emotions and thoughts are spiritual, how do these spiritual things have a causal effect on material bodies? What's the mechanism? How does one interact with the other?
I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that form by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think?
Well, first of all, nobody thinks they are random. Matter behaves in a pretty regular, predictable way most of the time. Secondly, if my thoughts are not essentially material interactions, how can I trust that they are able to have any accurate understanding of the material world? Why would non-material thoughts have a more trustworthy perception of matter than thoughts which are themselves material activities? I don't see why thoughts which are essentially a behavior of matter would be unable to come to an accurate understanding of how matter behaves. I certainly don't understand why spiritual thoughts would necessarily have a better understanding of it. I don't know if you've heard, but I do have a Patreon.